In 3, 2, welcome to the 214 The Win podcast. I am Josh Mazur, joined as always by Mike Sanders. We are here to talk basketball tonight. What are we going to talk about? Oh, what's that smell? Do you smell that? It smells like Clippers failure. Once again, it's a reoccurring theme in the world of the NBA. And this time it helped the Dallas Mavericks get to the second round. 4 future Hall of Famers, be damned, it doesn't matter. Even though only 3 of them played. Even though only 2 of them looked like they were supposed to be there in the Hall of Fame in the first place.
I think one might have been more impactful for the Mavericks than he was for his own team.
Maybe at some point.
Being honest.
Let's break down what we thought of that first round for just a second. We won't harp on it too long before we move on to the Oklahoma City Thunder and what we plan on them doing against the Mavericks coming up pretty soon. But what did you think of that first series? What did you like? What did you didn't? What are your takeaways from that first round?
Well, real quick. Yeah, Clippers tears.
Okay.
That's. Yeah.
I was like, are we sponsored all of a sudden? You're taking a drink of something. Did I not know?
You were sponsored by the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh, okay. That would be nice.
Yeah, Mark Cuban hit us up.
I don't think so.
So we both said Mavs in 5, and we have to take it on the chin that we were wrong.
It almost happened.
It should have happened.
I feel like it was more like Mavs in 5.5. So these are right in the middle. I should get credit for it at least. You maybe not, but I should get credit for it. I know we both had the same prediction, but I felt like I said it first. So
it was more like Mavs 5.49 was
yeah.
So you can round down to Mavs in 5.
Yeah.
The rule of math gives that to us, but there's a lot to react to, but also it just boils down to Dallas was better than the Clippers, and I think even with Kawhi, a good amount better, because that's probably the worst playoff series that Luka has played in his career in the NBA. And the Mavs still had 3 blowout wins out of the 6 games. And aside from that, I think Mavericks were better. A lot of good things to take from it. Some things that really need to get cleaned up for them to be able to compete and beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I'd give them their collective performance like a B- for the series. And if their B game can kind of, handle the Clippers pretty handedly outside of like 3 total quarters of basketball, then I'm pretty confident no matter who they play the rest of the way.
I thought they didn't play very well until that last game. Even in their wins, they struggled on offense, did not look like the team that finished that year out. The role players struggled mightily, weren't hitting their shots. Even in that final game, there were some people that were struggling. You did see Maxey start to look like playoff Maxey, and unfortunately, he tried to look like Michael Jordan for a second and jump over somebody and fell on his shoulder. Whether that was I don't know. I don't know what that play was on both sides of the ball. I don't know what either player was thinking, but not having Maxey in the next round is going to hurt a little bit. But I kind of gave, as far as a grade, if we're going to do a grade wise, I think they looked like a C to me for the most part, with the exception of that final game when Luka and Kyrie just kind of did the thing and pushed them past it, and then the role players got involved. Gafford looked like a monster again. They finally kind of turned the corner there. But before that, every game in that series was a struggle, especially for Luka and especially for those role players. So it's for them to get wins out of some. It's funny to call a game to call 30-point games from your best player like a bad game, but that's what they were. They were not good games by Luka. And you could see him struggling, especially from three. And just didn't look like the dominant player that he usually looks like. And that wasn't by any means somebody from the Clippers altering what he was trying to do. He just wasn't doing it. He just didn't look like Luka.
He missed a lot of wide open shots.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it was just him not being in rhythm, hampered by, the knee issue, a cold he may have had that may have affected him for a game or two. But it was definitely Luka, for his personal grade, was like a C-, C at best by his playoff standards. And for Dallas and that's what Luka said before the series. He said, what's the difference between the 2021 series against the Clippers and this year? And he said the difference is Kyrie Irving. And it
definitely was. Yeah.
And mainly in the second half of games offensively, but in all 12 halves of basketball that Kyrie Irving played in this series, he was, would it be crazy to say he was the second best defender for the Mavericks in this series behind, I would say Derrick Jones Jr. was the most impactful defender with his work on Paul George on the perimeter. For me personally, and a lot of PJ Washington stuff doesn't show up on the box score or isn't as flashy as Derrick Jones Jr. and Kyrie Irving, but Kyrie made Harden's life horrible for the most part, outside of a couple of, stretches in a couple of games. And Mavericks had Kai this year. And I think that's the main reason this series did not go 7, because he was able to lift Luka up whenever there was nobody to do that in the past playoff series, aside from a couple of series with Jalen Brunson in 2022. Aside from that, the Mavs have had nobody to right the ship whenever Luka is not on his A, B, or C+ game.
Yeah. I like I said, I probably would have given them a B- or a C, whole team wise coming out of that playoff. But good for them. They looked their best in that last game before closing them out. And I think everyone looked their best so far in the playoffs in that last game. So moving forward, pretty excited about what they're going to do against Oklahoma City. I will say, before we get off the Clippers, I do want to say it sucks that we didn't get to play Kyrie Irving, or excuse me, I did exactly what the announcers were doing the entire series, confusing Kawhi Leonard and Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
It sucks that we didn't get to play him in Kawhi, because I really would have liked the Mavericks, even if it took 7 games, would have liked to see them beat the full team. So we didn't have to hear that.
Yeah.
The chirping from Clippers Nation, or what the backup Lakers fans, as I like to call them. Because it's just annoying to beat a team that's not fully functional, even though we weren't either. We didn't have, the full-fledged Mavericks.
We didn't have Tim Hardaway Jr.
Look, you like to laugh about that, but he is their third leading scorer. Like, that's kind of a big deal. I know he's been playing like crap, but he's the third leading scorer and one of the better players on their team. I'm not going to let that go.
That's the equivalent of the Anthony Edwards line where he's like, well, they have Kevin Durant, but we have Jaden McDaniels. That's
well, I'm not saying that they would cancel each other out. I'm not like, no, I'm just saying Luka wasn't at his best. We didn't have Tim Hardaway Jr. We got some injuries. Our role players looked bad. We had some issues underlying in that series as well. But I would have liked Kawhi to be in the game so we could just say that was, fair's fair. But, it's basketball. So
Injuries happen.
Injuries happen. That's part of the game. You don't get to if it's and buts kind of situations. But moving on to OKC, what are you seeing out of this series? I'm a little less confident about Oklahoma City than I was, going against the Clippers. But that's because they're a better team. Oklahoma City all year was a scary team to go against. They're young, athletic, pretty carefree basketball. To be honest, they have a good coach, and players that have bought in. But with that said, Luka Doncic averages. He only played him twice this year, I think. He was injured.
Yeah,
twice. And out of the other two games that they played, but he averages a triple-double, 34 points, 13 and a half assists, and 11 rebounds in the two games that he played against him. Pretty good. I mean, I did see somebody call Lou Dort the Luka Doncic stopper today on Twitter, and that really made me laugh because I had to go look up some of the stats afterwards. Like, did I miss something? But I don't think so. What do you think?
We'll get to our predictions later. But I think at this point, I'm more confident that they'll beat the Thunder than I was about them beating the Clippers before the Kawhi injury stuff came out. Okay. That's post Kawhi injury. I figured that they would win the series at some point, the Mavericks. And the reason is I don't like it when announcers and commentators really lean on youth can't prosper in the playoffs in the NBA, because at times it does, at times it doesn't. But for that to be the knock on the Thunder and why they can't make it to the West Finals or even the NBA Finals, to me, that's not the main point for them. I think Dallas's blend of youth and veteran presence and NBA champion Kyrie Irving, Luka, who's been through, at this point, 7-8 really grueling playoff series. I think when your two stars have that much experience, along with also having youth on your side, where I think 5 of the other 7 rotation guys for Dallas, now that Maxi's not going to play, are below the age of 26. They have the youth aspect and they have the veteran presence aspect as well. And I think that's going to just, in those key clutch moments where it's, game 2, Mavericks are looking to go up 2-0 in the series back to Dallas, and they're down by 4 with 57 seconds left. I trust the Mavericks in that point more than I would in the inverse situation with the Thunder. I think Dallas, not being a high turnover team, turning the ball over on offense, really hurts the Thunder because they're really good in transition and their offense is really fueled by their defense. And they're not the best half court offense. Just like how if the Mavericks were to match up with the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm scared of their defense more than their offense, because their half court offense, aside from Anthony Edwards just going absolutely insane like he has been lately, they don't really have much to lean on in a crunch time situation that's been shown throughout this season. So I'm pretty confident in Dallas. I think they will ultimately end up winning the series. I'll save how many games till the end, so you have to keep watching to figure out how many games I think.
I'm going to beat you to it then.
But I don't know. And maybe I'm just ultra confident after them finally beating the Clippers, Kawhi or no Kawhi, and just having that monkey off of our back after 4 or 5 years of waiting for that. But if the Mavericks bring their B or better basketball, I think they win the series. If they play exactly how they did in the Clippers series, I think they end up losing against the Thunder, because the Thunder are much better. So Dallas does have to play better, but I really truly think that they will, because I don't think we see another series from Luka like we just saw against the Clippers.
Yeah, I agree. I think his next series will be better. I think I think rest for this team is a bad thing.
I agree.
For several different reasons. I think Jason Kidd doesn't know how to handle it. Because every time they've had rest and they go into a game one, they lose. He is not a good game one coach. He's not necessarily an adjustments coach either, to be honest. But I think for whatever reason, he's able to get his team up and ready for games when they're deeper in a series than he does at the beginning. It's now not it's not a knock on him anymore. It is like a pattern. His teams are not good at game one. So I'm hoping in this series to see a game one win. I'd like to break that pattern, that streak that Jason Kidd has had, especially with the Mavs and his time here. I would love to see them get a game one win and get that first win under their belt early on in the series. But in all honesty, this team plays better when they're down. They're they're just kind of that group of guys that likes to get beat up a little first.
Yeah. They need adversity for whatever reason. They need
especially
Luka.
Luka needs somebody to talk trash to him. It doesn't matter. It can be a 7-year-old little girl in the crowd. It gets him hyped. You see it every series, every game, like regular season game. If he can find somebody that's talking trash, he loves it. So the guy needs adversity. And with how good he is at basketball, it's kind of hard to find. So I would like to I'd like to see them get that first win under their belt in game one. But then again, I don't know if it'll happen. I don't know how this series goes. To be honest, I do have the Mavs winning because I think the experience and the two best players on the court are on the Mavericks.
Oh, Kyrie over Shea?
I would say in the playoffs, I would say the two best players on the court are on the Mavericks squad.
I would agree.
In regular season, if we're just talking about like where they are in their career, then yeah, I would put Shea above Kyrie at this point. I wouldn't put Luka below Shea. No. I know some people would love that. And the Mickey Mouse ears media over there has been doing it all year long. But if you just look at it on paper and on the court, it's not true. Luke is the best player on the court. I would go as far as to say any team they play against in the playoffs until they get to Denver. If they get to Denver, he will probably be the best player on the court. And then when you are in the playoffs and you have a guy like Kyrie, what he does in the second half, specifically the fourth quarter, is bonkers. I've never seen a player do it. It's amazing. It's more than just he's great at basketball. This is a different level of basketball that he plays when the fourth quarter comes. And you have nicknames for guys like Damian Lillard where it's like Dame time. Yeah. And it's a farce compared to what we've seen Kyrie do. And seeing him do it for the Mavericks in the playoffs has been just, I've never seen anything like it before. He just turns it on and does the most ridiculous things and makes everything look smooth. That one layup with 3 Clippers hanging all over him
It was did like a quadruple pump fake in
It
midair
just
and still finished. It's
I squeaked when I saw it. I couldn't there was this involuntary noise that came out of me when I saw that. I, I I don't know what you even say to that. And then the 3-pointer in the corner,
he has like three
he
or
just
four
does
moments
things.
a game, mostly in the second half, where you don't think there's another player in NBA history who could do what he just did. And and everything else aside that he brings positive to the team, having that where you have an impossible shot maker where we've seen Luka make tons and tons of impossible shots that you think only somebody would try to pull out of their bag when they're playing horse.
Yeah.
Like that Luka is amazing. He's known for that. Kyrie is the only player in the league that can rival him on that front. And Kyrie's, I don't know who hits more difficult shots, but Kyrie's look more difficult because usually his come with 2 or 3 guys on him in the lane because his are all, he's insane. He had, I can't remember if it was game 4, 5, or 6, but he was going full court I think it was game 5, and he went 1-on-3 in transition up the right side, and he did a left-handed offhand, off foot layup, and he jumped from outside the paint against 3 defenders, and
Yeah.
it looked easy. I I would never even think to try that if I was on like the Nerf hoop in my house. That's just stuff that unimaginable that somebody pulls that out in the game. And the fact that he can do that in the first minute of the first quarter, or when there's 3 seconds left in a game against Denver, where he's shooting a lefty floater 17 feet from the basket to win a game.
Yeah.
The fact that it does not matter what the stakes are, he can pull those types of shots out. As long as Dallas doesn't get down by 30 every single game, I think they win the series.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and we saw even when they got down big that they had enough to make their way back. It was just holding that. Holding that. It's the only thing that takes the sting away from watching Jalen Brunson in New York is what we get to watch with Kyrie Irving doing here in Dallas. I cannot imagine how much that would hurt, especially this playoff run that Jalen is having in New York. I would like. Oh, there's only the Steve Nash situation is the only thing that comes close. Is like watching him become an MVP as he left the Mavs. But we, all honesty, didn't have anything to replace him really. Like Jason Terry was close, but that's not the same thing.
No,
This is the only thing that would have made that feel okay is filling that spot with a Kyrie Irving, and like glad he's here because I know I wasn't not really I wasn't cheering for that trade when it first happened. I liked him as a player, but wasn't really sold on this being the right move and them clicking. And it took a while, but man, it's definitely here. They look good together.
Is there any reasons why you think Dallas won't win? Like what would be the main reason that they would not win this series against the Thunder?
It's funny because I think they have a really good matchup against this team. The only thing that I would say is the athleticism, and if Oklahoma starts to just run the lights out and Luka has to sprint the whole game and he can't play defense anymore, and that puts a weight on the rest of the team to kind of pick up that slack so he can still be active on offense. I think that's the key for Oklahoma, because they do have better athletic players than the Mavs do. Even though we do have athletes, I think that's the only way they could really do it. But I think at this point, this Mavs squad is good enough at forcing other teams to play their kind of ball.
Yeah.
That in most cases, they can kind of, when they see it happening, they can kind of adjust and force the other team to slow down a little, and meet them in that middle pace that they like to play in. What do you think? What's the?
I think that's not my number one reason. That's like probably number 2 or number 3 for me. That could, and I think it boils down to Luka's defense not being effective. That's like my number 2 reason. My number 1 reason is I think Dallas has the 2 best players in the series in a playoff setting, just like you think. But if you're looking at the top 16 players combined on the roster, you might take numbers 3 through like 7 from the Thunder.
Yeah,
I just think their supporting cast outside of Shea, I just don't know how Dallas is going to match up with Chet, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams. And I think Cason Wallace is really good as a rookie too. Not as impactful as Derek Lively, but also really good. And they're just a lot of young depth that they have more shooters than Dallas. And most of those are the role players. And it's going to be, I think each of them has really big advantages over the other. I think the depth of OKC is better. I think they have the same amount of players that they can play, but like I said, number 3 through 7 or 8 of a fantasy draft for the 2 teams would go to the Thunder. But I think Dallas's size advantage, even with Maxey not playing in the series, I still think their size advantage is humongous over OKC because Chet Holmgren, fantastic. He's going to be second in Rookie of the Year. He's going to be amazing in the league as long as he stays healthy. He can get beasted by Gafford and Lively, and even PJ to an extent. He's frail, and outside of that, you have the second.
Poor guy.
Sorry,
frail. Wow.
For NBA center standards, he is frail.
Yeah, that's
compared
true.
to others, and it's OKC also does a great job of making you play their game, just like we talked about, where Dallas is better at that nowadays too. So it's very possible that size disadvantage that OKC has does not come up, and Dallas cannot take advantage of it. But we saw pre-deadline, one of the 2 games that Luka played in against the Thunder, they were down 25-30 in the second half at one point, and I think Dallas went on like a 30-0 run or 31-0 run, took the lead, and ended up losing the game. Pretty similar to what happened against the Clippers. But during that second half where they came back against the Thunder, Derek Lively was dominating against Chet Holmgren on a possession-by-possession basis over and over and over again. And that was without Kyrie Irving on the floor and without PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. And then we saw when both teams were fully healthy before the All-Star break, post-trade deadline, Dallas blew them out by 30, 40 points when both teams were healthy.
Yeah.
And I know you taking those small sample sizes is one thing, but when Dallas is healthy, they have the same record percentage-wise as when the Thunder are healthy, because the Thunder were healthy pretty much all season long. And I think if you play a simulation of 100 simulations of this season, that this might be the best that the Thunder could end up as the 1 seed with 56, 57 wins. Whereas if you play it back for Dallas, I think there's a lot of simulations where they could be plus 57 wins based on how things were going. They just lost so many games from injury from Kyrie and others along the way that I don't think that 1 to 5 seed discrepancy really entails the difference between these 2 teams, because I think they are very evenly matched. I just think Dallas has a slight edge in the end.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I'm really looking for in this matchup is that I really do think that Luka Doncic wants to slay another dragon here in the fact that he does get compared every year. We've talked about it a lot on the podcast. Every year there's a new player that he gets compared to, and that people like to say this player is better. This year, it was Gilgeous-Alexander. So, perfect timing, I think. And, the players like to act like that doesn't affect them, and that's not something that they think about, but it is.
It does.
Like, you can see it on his face when they talk about it. It's frustrating to be the player that he is, and then every night when you watch Sports Center or you watch TNT guys, they are just all about some other player, and every year he's proved those players kind of tend to like fade, and he just keeps getting better. And this time you actually have a chance to play that particular playoff or that particular player in a playoff series. I think it's up to him to kind of show on a national level, hey, look what I do compared to this other guy. Now I fully expect Shea to be good, because he is good. He's very fun to watch. But this is Luka's chance to kind of like put the foot down and show a national level of people that maybe don't watch Dallas Mavericks basketball all the time. This is what I do. I do it consistently for the last, my whole career. I've done this. So
it's his moment.
Stop throwing players at me.
It's his moment to where, and I can't remember if it was 2011, 12, or 13, but when Derrick Rose won the MVP over LeBron when he was in Miami, when LeBron was like clearly at that point for like a 5-year stretch, like definitively the best player in the league, just wasn't getting the MVP, but Rose was getting the MVP over him because had a great season whatsoever. And LeBron and the Heat dominated the Bulls in the playoffs that same season. It's the chance for Dallas to do that, and for Luka specifically to do that. I want him to have that moment, and I think he will rise to the moment. I just hope he doesn't go out of his way, outside of the flow of what the Dallas does best, to make it happen. Because
we've seen him do that.
I think he's going to be 32, 33, exiting his prime, still doing that. I think that's just in him to try to show up and make statements. I just hope that and I don't know, maybe he does do that and goes after it and he succeeds for 5, 6, 7 games, whatever. And then we're happy that he did it because he averaged 45, 12, and 10 and had the best playoff series ever. He's capable of doing it, but with the way he's shooting right now, specifically the 3-ball, I hope he just lets the game come to him. He dominates where he can, and just picks and chooses his spots methodically. And I think the slow game in this series for him is going to be what can be the dominating and telling story. And I hope that he does. And I think that he will. So predictions?
With that said, let's do the predictions. I'm going to let you go first, because last time I leaked mine and you got all angry at me. So you go first.
Well,
what you got going on?
You did not leak it this time. Appreciate it, sir. I'm going Mavs in 6.
Okay.
And I think in last series, I predicted how the games would go in order of wins and losses. And I think I only got 2 or 3 right. So I was kind of off. I think Dallas wins the first game. I think Jason Kidd gets his game 1 win. And it's only because Dallas will only have 3 days off compared to OKC having like 9 days off. I think that's going to be a big part of game 1. I think they lose game 2. I think they lose game 3. But then I think they win games 4, 5, and 6.
See, you always got to one-up me and break it down by game. And I forgot you did it last time and didn't prepare this again this time.
It sounds like a personal problem, honestly.
It does. It is a personal problem. But I am going to send you some hate mail. No, I have Mavs in 7, which is I usually don't do 7, but I think this is a matchup where both teams, man, they compare really well against each other. And depending on who forces their type of game every night, because both teams are good at doing that, I think it could be a really long series for everyone involved. But here's the deal: if it goes to 7 games, I think the Mavericks win just because they have those 2 factors that I talked about earlier, which are 2 of the clutchest individuals we've seen in Luka and Kyrie. I don't think a young team can beat them in a game 7. I think it's hard for anybody to beat them in a game 7, especially now at this point in both of their careers. Really hard for a team this early on in their playoff career to beat a team like this in a game 7. So originally I had it OKC in 6. Because I think if it only lasts till 6, if they're up, I don't think the Mavs win those 2 in a row. Because I think I think Maxey was really important to this series, so it really hurt to see him get pushed out. His defense, his 3-point is very important against a team like this. So even though he's not a giant, like he's not a huge player to be out. But that's a big role to be filled. The thing that gave me a little bit of hope is seeing a player like Josh Green have a good game in his absence, basically, in that last game after he got hurt. I know they're not the same position, but he kind of filled some of those minutes. And they pushed PJ Washington around, and they put Derek Lively and Gafford in, moved them around a little. I just think if it goes to 7, it's Mavs in 7. And so that's what I'm going with. Mavs in 7.
We both
now,
have
if
the
they
Mavs.
do it in 4, that's what I said the whole time. That's what I had the whole time. I don't like...
I need to record 2 edits of this ending segment to where we can repurpose history.
I wrote it in my journal. I didn't say it out loud, but I wrote it in my journal. Mavs in 4. I whispered it into the sky.
I've got a mole in your operation. You didn't listen to that.
It was my son, wasn't it? He told. Okay. Well, with that, guys, like, subscribe, share our stuff. Thank you for listening to all of our blabber for the last few minutes. And if you have any predictions, put them in the comments or yell at us on Twitter. We're there.
Send Josh some hate mail. He loves
fine
it.
with that too. I got a P.O. box. You can send it to it. All right, guys. See ya.